Good morning friends, today is World Arthritis Day and we are all gathered here to celebrate this day together. आज हम इस शुभ दिन पर आर्थराइटिस के बारे में चर्चा करेंगे और आपस में कुछ व्यूज एक्सचेंज करेंगे. For this program today we have Dr. Vijeta. Apart from me, she is going to be talking to you about arthritis and weight and healthy eating. Then we have two very special guests who have come from very far. Mrs. Keval Kaur, she has come from Haryana to share her experience of arthritis and her journey. And we have the very talented Mrs. Meenu Sharma, who is an artist. She is also going to share her personal and her artistic journey with us on this day. So 12th October is World Arthritis Day. So what is World Arthritis Day? है क्या World Arthritis Day? World Arthritis Day is a day devoted to focusing our attention on the importance and impact created by rheumatic and musculoskeletal diseases the world over. It is a global event. It was first set up by the Arthritis and Rheumatism Association in the year 1996. The theme for this day is it's in your hand, take action. Why so much noise about arthritis, rheumatism? What is the significance? Why are we so much focused? Why is the world so much focused on this category of diseases, especially now? Rheumatic diseases afflict around 25% of the global population. It means that every family in एक तरह से या किसी और तरीके से is having someone who is suffering from this malady. Rheumatic diseases are the commonest causes of disability in the world today. They are the commonest causes of people retiring early, and untreated rheumatic diseases can lead to premature mortality. So that's a huge impact. The rheumatic diseases have added considerable cost to the healthcare. The cost include the diagnosis, the treatment, investigation, research, spreading awareness, and also indirect cost related to the loss of work hours and jobs and productivity by people. So it's a huge physical, mental and financial impact of the disease on the community as a whole throughout the world. Not only that, rheumatic diseases, in other words, it means that they have a considerable burden of disability, premature death, complications if left untreated. And today in the pandemic, we are all focused so much on the healthcare in every discussion, be it in the economic forum, in the political forum, in our day-to-day lives. Because of COVID, everything, healthcare has come into a sharp focus. However, it is not recognized that what is the burden of rheumatic diseases and how much they impact us in very many different ways. Hence, it is very important to be aware of these diseases. And the best thing is arthritis today treatable. It is a treatable form of diseases. And many of you sitting here have already experienced that. And we are also going to listen to two of our heroes who have come all the way from such a far off distance to talk to us about their journey with these conditions. So, what is arthritis? The word arthritis is derived from the Greek language. Arth meaning joint and itis means inflammation. So arthritis is inflammation in and around the joint, Arthritis affects the bone, joints, muscles, tendon and the soft tissue surrounding the joints. Is arthritis one disease? नहीं, arthritis includes more than 200 varieties of diseases हैं. और इनको समझने के लिए we can very easily classify these diseases into 4 major categories. We have inflammatory arthritis, which includes rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, scleroderma, lupus, etc., etc. Then there is a category of arthritis which includes wear and tear arthritis, which is osteoarthritis. The third category of arthritis are deposition diseases, which result from deposition of something within the joint. The good examples are gout resulting from deposition of uric acid crystals, and there are several other crystals which can get deposited in the joint, inciting an inflammatory response in the form of arthritis. The last category, but not the least, are infection-related arthritis. The infection can directly invade the joint, causing a septic arthritis, or it may cause an indirect kind of response resulting from the immune response which an infection incites within our body. To give you an example, reactive arthritis. So we have learned today that on this World Arthritis Day, what is the importance of rheumatic diseases? What is the theme for this day's World Arthritis Day? What is arthritis? What are the different kinds of arthritis? So there also must be certain causes and risk factors for arthritis. So what are those risk factors? The risk factors broadly can be classified into non-modifiable risk factors, जिनको हम modify नहीं कर सकते, and modifiable risk factors. Non-modifiable risk factors include age at which the disease can start. Different diseases can start at different age groups. Although arthritis can afflict a person of any age, be it an adult, be it a man, woman, child or babies. For example, the peak incidence of rheumatoid arthritis is around 40 years of age, though it can start in any age. The peak incidence of ankylosing spondylitis is around 24 years of age. So there are different diseases which manifest in their peak form at different peak ages in us. The second non-modifiable factor is gender. Men and women of all ages get afflicted by arthritis. So do children and babies. But there are certain diseases which are more predominant in one gender. To give you a few examples, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, lupus, these are more common in women as compared to men. Ankylosing spondylitis and gout are more common in men as compared to women. So these are some of the examples how gender influences the occurrence of these diseases in the society. The third modifiable risk factor is genetic background. For example, people who have a family history of arthritis, in them the risk of developing arthritis is more. But good news is that this risk is not absolute. ऐसा नहीं कि किसी की फैमिली में आर्थराइटिस है तो सारे ऑफस्प्रिंग्स को सभी को आर्थराइटिस हो जाएगा. The risk is pretty small, but it is important to be aware of this non-modifiable risk factor, because if someone has this non-modifiable risk factor, that person can be more careful with the modifiable risk factors to avoid the occurrence of this disease. So hence the importance of non-modifiable risk factors. So let's have a look at the modifiable risk factors. That what are the modifiable risk factors which are important in this disease? Smoking. Smoking is a very important risk factor for causing and precipitating rheumatic diseases. A person with a certain type of genetic makeup and who smokes has kind of 40 times the risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis. So this is also a very good example of how genetics and environmental factors get together to trigger a disease or to make it even worse. And the second bad news is that for people who smoke, the effect of treatment of anti-arthritis medicine also becomes less. The drugs are no longer as effective as would be non-smokers. So smoking is a very important modifiable risk factor, and it is a very easily modifiable risk factor provided one makes up one's mind. Then there are environmental factors. Exposure to asbestos, silica, bacteria or viruses are also important precipitating causes of arthritis, and one needs to be aware of these because they are to a large extent modified. Dietary factors. People who are deficient in vitamin D, people who consume high quantities of coffee, high salt intake, they are all prone for rheumatoid arthritis. Similarly, people who consume too much of red meat, seafood are all candidates for gout. So hence there is a lot of importance of dietary factors in the causation of the disease. Similarly, there are dietary factors which help in amelioration of the disease, which lessen the risk. For example, consumption of fish oil, which contains omega-3, is a protective factor. People who consume vegetables and fruits, which are rich sources of antioxidants, are similarly protected to some extent. Similarly, curcumin in turmeric is also anti-inflammatory in nature. So these are also some examples how one can modify one's lifestyle to have a benefit effect on these diseases, both in terms of prevention as well as therapeutic. Then obesity is also a very important risk factor for rheumatoid arthritis, gout, osteoarthritis. Dr. Vijeta is later going to talk about this and going to enlighten us more on this aspect of the disease. Periodontitis, which is a chronic inflammation of the gums, is again a risk factor for rheumatoid arthritis. Certain occupations where there is a high risk of injury to joints, muscles and tendons also can predispose one to osteoarthritis. So these are some of the modifiable risk factors which we need to be aware for looking at the prevention and causation of arthritis. So we have learned so much about arthritis. Now let's also focus on another important aspect, that what are the red flags of arthritis? How do we identify it if there is arthritis in the society or in our relative or a friend? How can it be identified? Why I am paying so much attention to this is the fact that in my 35 years of experience, I have seen patients, they in fact reach us very late. And I think some of us will also discuss this aspect little later, that why the referral gets delayed, why there is no awareness, and today's activity is also geared towards that, to spread awareness, to make people aware about the signs and symptoms of the disease. So there are certain red flags that one can be aware about. So pain, swelling, stiffness, warmth, tenderness, restriction of movement. These are all warning signs of arthritis. But you would be surprised to know that arthritis or joint pain is only one manifestation of the disease. That these diseases can involve other organs in the body like the eyes, lung, salivary gland, heart, kidney, nerves, kidneys. So many organs, systems in the body can get involved, and these are known as extra-articular manifestations of the disease. Extra-articular meaning that outside the joint, outside the musculoskeletal system. And many patients also come to us with low-grade fever, a feeling of fatigue, tiredness, which they share with us that no one understands them when they say they're tired. People tell them your hemoglobin is fine, why should you be tired? So fatigue is also a very important symptom of the disease, which is often missed, often not understood by people, that this is part and parcel of the disease process. So as the disease keeps on improving, the fatigue factor also improves. So this was regarding the red flags in rheumatoid arthritis and other forms of arthritis. So how is arthritis diagnosed? We have known the red flags, okay. How do we confirm a diagnosis of arthritis, that this is arthritis, and what form of arthritis is this, and what is the severity of the disease? These are again all three integrated variables in the diagnostic algorithm of arthritis. A diagnosis of arthritis is made after taking a detailed medical history of the person who has presented to us, a detailed physical examination, laboratory tests and imaging to come to a reasonable conclusion about the disease, its severity and the organ involved. So all these domains are very important to plan proper treatment for a particular patient. The question arises, we have seen कि भी rheumatic disease की कितनी importance है, कितनी disability, burden, cost, everything. But let's come down to an individual person. The question is, why do we treat arthritis? Very critical question, but simple question. कि हम क्यों इलाज करते हैं arthritis का? We treat because we are in pain. We need relief from that pain. Second, perhaps even a more important reason beyond the pain is to prevent the structural damage which is happening inside the joints and other tissues with the disease affliction. Because of loss of structural damage means deformity, loss of function and loss of ability to work. Then the other important thing is to prevent complications. That's another important goal of treatment, to prevent complications of the disease. And fourth is to maintain the quality of life. These are four very important goals of treatment. Next question is, what is the mission? What is our mission of treating arthritis? Ultimately, what are we looking at? The mission is remission. Remission means putting the disease to sleep. Remission is almost as good as cure, believe me. So that is the ultimate aim. And I am happy to tell you that with modern treatments today, modern approaches, modern tools which we have at our disposal, it is possible to achieve remission. If for some reason we are not able to achieve remission in some cases, there is a second best goal, and that goal is of low disease activity. Low disease activity is still a good goal as compared to a severe disease, as compared to having a high disease activity. So these are the goals and mission of treating arthritis. To give you some example of loss of productivity, loss of work, I will tell you a small story about Dr. Christian Barnard. Dr. Christian Barnard was a very famous South African surgeon. He was famous because he performed the first successful human cardiac transplant. Successful, it was not a failure. That surgery was a big success, and he was toasted and celebrated over the entire world for his heroic surgery. However, after that heroic surgery, we never professionally heard of this great surgeon again. I am sure he was capable of much more. Had he continued to work, he would have produced some more good things for humanity. But we did not hear about him. Why? He had rheumatoid arthritis. He could never operate in his life again. So it was like a professional death sentence. Such a life-altering disease. And he used to attend the meetings of American College of Rheumatology looking for some cures. Even now when I go to US and Europe to attend meetings, we see patients coming and attending meetings. In our country it's not so common, but in those countries those patients are allowed, and some of them are even on oxygen. They are trying to find out a cure or a treatment for their diseases. And so much interest there, just as you people are taking interest today in this discussion. So much of awareness helps people and have knowledge about the condition which they are suffering from and what they need to do with it. So I would end by saying arthritis is treatable. Don't delay, take action. It's in your hands. Thank you. Thank you.